Beautiful.
Well, welcome to the World Happiness Fest and to these conversations that we have with thought leaders and change makers, and having you, Takur Singh Paudel, former Minister of Education in Bhutan. It's an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed for having me here.
So something that really resonates with me when I see your bio and your work is that you really love what you do. You are really an educator, and this is something that has been recognized for so many institutions. You have so many medals. UNESCO. You actually achieved for Bhutan uh, what it was the MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, when you were the head of education in Bhutan. But something that I love is that you love walking, and I know Bhutan. I've been there many times. It's not easy to walk in Bhutan, but you walk a lot. So what is that walking part coming? Why do you like so much walking?
Thank you very much indeed again for this opportunity to join you in this conversation. And to our viewers, wherever they are in the world, whichever parallel or the meridian, whatever time zone, wherever you are in the world, to all of you who are part of this conversation, I would like to say what a great delight it's been for me to join you and welcome you. I just hope that you're all keeping well in spite of COVID-19. From Bhutan, this is with prayers and good wishes to all of you. And like to join Dr. Galado to welcome you to this conversation. And to get back to your question, Dr. Galado, I have had the joy of working in this very important field called education for a long time, spent all my working life with young people, children, boys and girls, the youth of this country, with a tremendous group of colleagues, our teachers, educators across the country, and my seniors, elders. So, as you know, Bhutan, having been here several times and having traveled across the country, the terrain is not very easy to travel across, but I thought it was very important for me to travel to the different parts of the country. I've had the joy of visiting all the 20 districts of the country. Some of them involve crossing mountain passes 17,100 feet, 16,400 feet, been to the remotest school in the country. Overall, I would have met about 80% of our fellow teachers, about 80% of our students, having visited and interacted with colleagues and parents and students across the country. And I won't travel outside the country much because it doesn't make much sense to travel 2 days, 3 days to attend a conference far away from home and taking another 2 or 3 days to get back home. But it is important for me to understand how my fellow citizens live, how my fellow teachers work, what kind of conditions obtain in the country where our children, in fact, come to study, how long they travel to get to school, how long they travel to get back home. So for me, it was extremely important to understand the reality of the field. Staying in the capital in Thimphu, I could only imagine what must be happening far away from the capital in our remote schools. So it has been a very deep educational experience It has been a kind of a discovery of my country. It was hard work, hard walk. Some of the places took as long as or as many as 7 days to get from point A to point B. But it was worth taking those long, long travels, making those long travels and visiting my fellow teachers wherever they were working. So as difficult as it was also deeply fulfilling. It allowed me to discover my country, to appreciate the beauty and the variety of this jewel of the Himalayas, as I call Bhutan. So those travels have been an education and a discovery. I know Bhutan better thanks to those travels.
So I love Bhutan. I've been there many times, and hopefully I can be back very soon. So I know what you mean when you say 7 days from point A to point B. So I really appreciate what you were doing. What is the situation now with COVID? I know that there are really few cases. How are you personally feeling with this situation, and how is your family, and how is your community doing with COVID? Because probably now you are working less because of COVID. How COVID has changed the situation right now in Bhutan?
As you might know, the first case of the virus was detected in Bhutan on the 5th of March this year. The case was reported in a traveling a visitor from the United States, 76 years old visitor from the United States with his partner. But after that, our government, led by His Majesty the King himself at the forefront, has moved very quickly and put in the necessary intervention measures. As soon as the case was detected, there was a very quick move to do what is called contact tracing, isolation, and there's a very strong national committee to look after any case that perhaps would have had to be taken care of. So far, we have been fortunate enough not to have any internal transmission in the country, and fortunately, there have been no fatalities within the country. There are around 90 cases reported so far, and all these cases have come from outside. Bhutanese have been working in different parts of the world, and now with the arrangement made by the government, many of them have been returning to Bhutan, and some of them are coming from countries which have been affected by the virus. So all the cases that have been recorded in the country have actually come from outside. However, we are not taking any chance with the virus. The prevention measures have been very strong. As I said earlier on, His Majesty the King himself has been at the forefront, leading the fight against this virus. So far, the situation has been under absolute control. However, we have no illusion about the challenges because there have been rising cases in our neighboring countries, and we need to take precaution. One of the good things that has happened in the country is that despite all the anxiety and the uncertainties, Bhutan has come together as a family. There's been a lot of goodwill and positive energy. This is one very special moment in the country when this nation has come together as a family under His Majesty the King. The people have come forward to do what they could in terms of supporting the national efforts by volunteering to do the necessary checks, especially in those sensitive areas. People have come forward to contribute services in terms of cash and kind. They have offered their facilities, the properties, to be used as quarantine facilities by the government. And there are the service forces, the volunteers, including the villagers, the farmers, who contribute whatever they produce in terms of vegetables, farm produce, to support the government in its efforts to fight this virus. So overall, as anxious as we all are, it is also a time at which we have seen the best of our people in terms of their manifestation of this spirit of volunteerism, altruism, and positive energy. And in the same way, we feel that even when the virus is beaten, and we hope we'll be able to beat the virus soon, this positive energy will continue in the future. This is very important for nations. In the same way, I've also seen in many parts of the world, people coming forward like never before to help those in need. So it is a moment at which the basic human goodness seems to be manifesting itself in such abundance. And it is my hope and my prayer that even when the virus is beaten, this goodwill, this positive energy, this basic human goodness will continue, and that will be the new norm. I call it Revolution 5.0, the return of the human. At this point in time around the world, we see Mother Earth far greener than it has been for a long time. The sea is bluer, the sky is clearer, water is cleaner, air is more breathable, animals, birds, and reptiles have been able to breathe freer. So with all the pain that has been unleashed by COVID-19 all around the world, I think this is also a time at which basic human goodness has manifested itself. This is, I think, one of the finest things that has happened as a byproduct of this very painful experience with COVID-19. And it is our prayer that that the world will understand and learn something positive, something sustainable, something good for the future. If we don't learn anything good from this pain, if the world doesn't become any better as a result of so much pain and suffering, this pain and this anxiety, this devastation will have been such a waste. It will be such a tragic, tragic waste. So my own hope is that all our nations, our people, and the world, and humanity will come out wiser, a little humbler, and a little more sensitive, and that it will have learned something very valuable. So within the country, we're very happy to see that there's been a lot of positive energy manifested, despite the pain and the anxiety, and around the world, with all the pain and anxiety that there is, the uncertainty that there is, it is also a time when we see the return of basic human goodness. I call it Revolution 5.0.
Wow. So I love this revolution, and something that we were talking a couple of weeks with the economist John Hollowell is that societies with higher levels of trust are dealing much better with COVID. I think that definitely Bhutan is an example, as you are explaining, of how the reaction of the community with that altruism and that trust is paying off. Can we go deeper into what is happening now, focusing on education, and what is going to happen over the next months as we move forward to the new school year. What are the plans? And something that you mentioned is that because of COVID, now the world is greener and the oceans are bluer. And we want, of course, today we want to talk about the green project, my green school project. So can we have even greener schools, or they are already green in Bhutan? So can we talk about both parts, the part of how is COVID affecting education now, and what do you think is going to happen over the next months? And let's start talking about the green project that you led in Bhutan for so many years.
Oh, thank you so much indeed. I would like to show a few slides. This is my conception of the North Star, and with the viewer, a Bhutanese gentleman there looking at the North Star. I begin with this premise that all nations need a North Star, just as all individuals need a dream to look to the future, to organize their mind and their resources so that 10 years down the line, 15, 20, 30, 40 years down the line, they get somewhere. So all nations need a North Star to direct them in the direction that they want to go to. As we know, long ago, when the world didn't have the precision equipment that we have today, sailors on the wide open seas looked at the North Star to locate the direction to the safety of the port. Today, many people may not have the time or the inclination to look at the North Star. But even in the 21st century, in fact, more so now than ever before, there is the need to look at the North Star. All societies, all nations ought to have their own North Star. And for Bhutan, the North Star was identified by His Majesty, the fourth king of Bhutan, Dugyalpo Jigme Singha Wangchuk, who has given to the world and to Bhutan and the Bhutanese people the all-embracing, holistic, sustainable vision of development called gross national happiness. Some 40 years ago, a young king, 16, going on 17, looked at the world and saw it whole. The world was accustomed to measuring progress by using the yardstick of gross domestic product. As young as His Majesty was, he saw that gross domestic product was a convenient tool, but he didn't tell the whole story. It told only a part of the story of human progress. But if we mean anything by progress or development, it has to be based on a more holistic vision of what it is. What is the goal of life? What is the purpose of development? So His Majesty wanted to, in fact, look for Bhutan a much more holistic vision of development, and he called it gross national happiness. Over the past 40 years or so, this has been our North Star. And we believe that if a nation has a North Star, if it has a big dream, the subsystems of that nation have to embrace and advance that vision of the country. And the education system is an extremely important subsystem of any nation, because in our education system, in our schools, colleges, and universities and learning centers, we have the most precious segment of the population. Our children, our boys and girls, our young men and women, They are our future leaders. And if they do not partake of that North Star, if they do not share in the vision of the country's future, when they graduate from schools, colleges, and universities and join the larger society, they may be going a way which is far different from that of the nation as a whole. So, in order to share in the vision of the North Star of the country, in 2009, the Ministry of Education launched a big nationwide educational reform initiative. We call it Educating for Gross National Happiness. And the strategy that we adopted to implement this program called Educating for Gross National Happiness is called Nurturing Green Schools. Nurturing green schools as a means to an end, and the end is Green Bhutan. I have to explain what we mean by green or greenery. Green
Yes.
is a color, but
Mhm.
more importantly, green is a metaphor. Green is a metaphor for anything and everything that supports and sustains life. And by life, we mean human life, animal life, bird life, plant life, life in all its multiple variety, life in its abundance, in its infinity. So anything and everything that supports and sustains life in its multiple forms is green. So we can have a green school, we can have a green home, we can have a green society, green economics, green politics, green legislature, green judiciary, green governance. So green is a metaphor for anything that supports life. If there's a school that supports life and learning, that is a green school. If we have a university or a college or an institution of learning that supports life and the integrity of life, the preciousness of life, that allows life to blossom and to bloom, that is a green school. If the government supports the blossoming of the life of its citizens, allows them, allows the people to realize their fuller potential to achieve their higher goals. If legislature does that, if the judiciary does that, if business and industries do that, that will be supportive of life. That will be a green project. That will be a green industry. That will be green business. That will be a green corporation. So we can have a green school, a green institution, a green parliament, a green court, a green family, a green life. So green is principle of good life. Green is a principle of holistic and sustainable, noble life. And today, when you look around the world, there is so much happening in the name of education, but not all of that is education. Just as indeed, gross domestic product as a measure of development is highly reductionistic, highly limited and narrow, because it only focuses on economic or material development and leaves out many other non-economic, non-material, but yet extremely important elements that make life worthwhile and meaningful and purposeful. In the same way, education, conventional education, has been guilty of doing much the same thing, leaving out the claims of life and learning on education systems, on teaching and learning. At best, today's education responds to the claims of the head or the mind and leaves out many other important elements that make us who we are, that make the children who they are. So, what we feel is that education must be able to respond to the claims of many other elements apart from the intellectual or the mental claim, the claim of the market, the claim of the employing agencies, the claim of factories and corporations. Education ought to be much, much more than simply preparing young people for the job market, as important as it is, for the needs of the corporations, and companies, as important that may be. So education ought to be for life. Education ought to be for the realization of the full potential of the children. I think we have been very unfair to the children, very unfair to young men and women. Education was meant to be the noble sector of all the sectors of public service. The wise people of the past described education as the noble sector. No other sector has ever been described as the noble sector. There must have been a very good reason for calling education the noble sector. Education was meant to help young men and women, boys and girls, children, to cultivate the nobility of their mind, to cultivate the nobility of their heart, thereby leading to the cultivation of the nobility of action. So when the head and the heart and hands come together in on the principle of nobility, you can imagine the experience, the outcome of such an experience. I think the world needs, especially now than ever before, a green model of education. That is why my green school is an invitation. It is a plea. It is a prayer for a renewal of life, for a renewal of learning, and for a renewal of our world. Education cannot solve all the problems of the world, but it is perhaps the most important instrument to redeem the world. And we have to do all that we can to make education work. And perhaps it is about time that we looked at education from a much more holistic perspective. And in this light, my green school is a kind of a response to the need of the moment.
This is beautiful. I mean, just listening to you, how much inspiration you are bringing to the world. This is the moment. This is really the moment where so many countries have to learn from what you've done, from what Bhutan and the North Star has meant to so many kids. And I would love that if we can go deeper into the elements of what a green school is. I know that there are about 8 elements, but if we can go deeper and we can learn, I think this can be a really useful guide for so many schools that right now are struggling all around the world trying to find the North Star. So can we go deeper into the elements of what a green school is?
Thank you very much indeed. Um, as I mentioned earlier on, a green school has 8 elements. In other words, these elements are like the vital claims on education systems, on educators, and on teaching and learning. Today, mostly our educational systems address primarily one claim. That is the claim of the employment market, the job market. And our young people in our schools, colleges, and universities are required to learn those skills that fit the bill. And very often we are told that your graduates, your students are not good enough for the job market. But we have never asked the question, are the employing agencies, are the corporations fit enough for the noble sector, for the higher goals of the society, for the higher goals of lives? So my green school has 8 elements. In other words, these are the 8 claims. And today, when people are talking about global warming, climate change, mass movements of people, erosion, the world rapidly changing on a daily basis, on a minute by minute basis, we feel that the first principle of a green school ought to be understanding and appreciating our relationship with Mother Earth. some natural greenery, or an appreciation or the ability to discover our relationship, a vital, fundamental relationship between us, the humans, and the natural world is very important. We human beings are dependent on Mother Earth, on planet Earth. Planet Earth can be autonomous, is autonomous. Planet Earth can survive on her own. Mother Earth, Mother Nature can survive on her own, but we cannot. But over time, we have usurped, we have claimed total ownership on planet Earth as if it is for us to play with them. That is the reason why perhaps we see the kind of natural disasters that we see every now and then. I feel that a green school must honor this relationship between us, the humans, and planet Earth, Mother Nature, because we need the earth to walk on. We need the air to breathe. We need the water to drink. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, the earth is becoming uninhabitable. The water is becoming undrinkable. Air is becoming unbreathable. Life becoming unviable. It is basically because of this disconnect between us, the humans, and planet Earth. Appreciating this relationship between us, the humans, and planet Earth will make us more sensitive, more feeling, more hearing. Exposure to and this mutual respect for planet Earth and planet Earth's security that we need so very badly will secure our well-being. We'll be able to protect planet Earth, and planet Earth will protect us. Our children need to understand the language of the soil, what it feels to walk on the surface of nature, to touch the soil with the feet, what it means to learn the language of the plants, the birds, the animals, vegetation, the air, the water, everything. I think this ability to appreciate these beautiful gifts of nature will make us more hearing, more seeing, more feeling, and thereby much more sensitive, much more human. I think in the future, this ought to be the most important principle of education. If we have to survive, and if the planet has to survive, it will have to survive on the basis of this mutual respect for, reverence for planet Earth, and that relationship that we humans have with planet Earth. So in my green school, the first principle, the first claim is that of planet Earth.
Wow.
The second,
Yes, please. No, I was just thinking the connection between the North Star, having the North Star, and right away starting with nature is so powerful, because you don't distract anybody. Is we go and we start what is really important, which is understanding and working and learning as part of nature, because we are nature. So thank you so much. What is the second element?
oh, thank you so much indeed. Nature, to go back to nature again, nature is a full curriculum. There is, nature is complete. It is a full, it is it is an amazing gift of abundance. So if we go back to nature and respect nature and learn from nature, nature will never fail us. That's why it's so very important. The second element is social greenery. Social greenery is, in fact, It's got to do with our ability to build relationships. Our children, our young men and women, our boys and girls, they come from different homes, different villages, different towns, different cities. They come with their names and identities. But when they come to a school or a place of learning, they meet people they have never met before. They make friendship with people they have never met before, and they become problem solvers. They build bridges. They make friendship. They're able to work together as a team. And a place of learning is the best laboratory in which they learn these important life lessons. Children who have learned to learn how to make friendship in school will always be able to make friendship when they go beyond the gates of the school or college or university. If they have learned how to solve problems when they're in school, they will always be problem solvers. If they have learned how to build bridges, how to generate positive energy, how to create goodwill as social beings, they will be our they will be our bridge builders. They will be our problem solvers. They will resolve conflicts. So, school is a place for learning these very fine skills, life skills, to build positive energy, to generate goodwill, to build friendship. So, it is not, we are not there, children are not there just to complete the curriculum, finish year one and move on to year two, collect a degree at the end of the course, and get into a job, as important as all these are. But a school is a place where our young men and women, boys and girls, are able to extend the range of their life, how sensitive they become. Are they able to celebrate diversity, honor each other, celebrate each other, support each other, make everybody succeed? It should not be a place where only the fittest survive. It should be a place that fits everybody to survive. A school ought to be green in the sense that there's a place where life can flower, life can blossom, and such an experience will have a tremendous implication on the quality of the society to which young people enter at graduation. So this is a social greenery, very important element. Today we do not talk about the social element of a school. We talk about society maybe from a more sociological point of view, but not as a living, live entity that matters to young children as living beings. It has to be a real experience, felt experience. Third element is culture, cultural greenery. We are all part of the culture. Culture gives us that sense of identity, that sense of belonging. It provides us with a point of reference. We are all products of culture. The way we are, the way we dress ourselves up, the way we speak, our language and literature, our art and music, our architecture, the songs and the dances, our sports and games, the way we cook our food and prepare our drinks, our celebrations, our rites and rituals, our customs, our costumes, the way proclaim who we are. All these together make us who we are. So culture is an extremely important point of reference. Where did we come from? Where did we come from? What are our roots? How is it that we are the way we are? How did we get to be the way we are? These are very important. What are some of those cultural milestones? Who have been the most important cultural voices, cultural icons? Our succeeding generations would have to learn where their roots are. Rootless people without a history, without cultural roots, will be alien to themselves, and a time will come when they will have nothing to fall back on. The future is exciting. It is something that we must embrace. But without the past, without our cultural roots, without our history, we will not be able to relate to anything. The past, the history, our culture is a reality. There is something that is there. And in times of uncertainty, we can always fall back on something. Rootlessness, especially cultural erosion. Today, all around the world, there's a lot of, there's a tremendous sense of alienation, a sense of rootlessness, a sense of estrangement from oneself, from the family, from one's culture, from one's society, from one's nations. That's why children ought to be able to feel that they belong somewhere, that they have something to fall back on, whether it is music, or sports and games, the finer things of life. Culture has got to be again imbibed, not only as a subject to study, but as a felt experience. Celebrating diversity, celebrating the beauty of life, celebrating togetherness, celebrating our heritage, our traditions, the sense of identity of what makes us who we are. So this is culture is extremely important as well. Today, many our institutions don't talk about culture the way culture ought to be talked about. It is important.
So,
It is the soul of a society, the soul of a people, the soul of a nation. It is the point of a nation's uniqueness. It is the voice of a nation's identity, of a people's identity. We may have everything, but if there's no identity, there's something very seriously wrong. See, that's why culture has got to be approached in a much broader and sensitive way. See, the claim today we don't talk about the claim of culture. It is important to talk about the claim of Mother Nature. It is important to educate our young people, succeeding generations. It is only fair that they learn to be socially sensitive. It is only fair that they learn to be culturally sensitive. And then we have the intellectual element. Of course, today the intellectual element receives quite a bit of attention because we feel that it's important to sharpen the brains and skills of young people so that they get a good job. It's important. But intellectual greenery has got to do with those important milestones in the evolution of the human race. It is the intellect, the mind is the womb of ideas. And it is these ideas that have moved the human race forward. It has marked the march of nations and of humanity forwards. So, what are those big intellectual, the products of the intellect? What are the great ideas of humanity, the great ideas of science, the great ideas of mathematics, the great ideas of philosophy, the great ideas of sociology, the great ideas of art and music? Why is it that these ideas are so important that they form the basis of our progress? The world has become what it is because of the manifestation of the intellectual genius of the human race. So, what are some of those important milestones in the intellectual evolution of the human race? I feel it's extremely important to honor the claim of the intellect, not only to sharpen young people's brains and skills, but because the intellect, the mind, the ideas make learners strong, they confident, and more appreciative of how we have got to be where we are. Today, we use the mobile phones, the products of science and technology, innovation, as if They have been there all the time. But all these are a product of several generations of people's thinking, the intellectual endeavors of the human race. Some intellectual greenery has got to do with appreciating the finer dimensions of ideas. So a green school has got to honor the claim of the mind and the intellect. Now we come to the academic element. Now we are ready. Now the children, I believe, are much better positioned. They know where they stand in relation to planet Earth, in relation to Mother Earth. They know where they stand in relation to the society, the bigger societal framework. They know where they stand in relation to culture, to intellect. Now we are prepared, children are better prepared to understand the specific subjects that we put in the curriculum. Now they're prepared better. They are better prepared now to talk about mathematics, to talk about what there is in the syllabus, to physics, chemistry, biology. But here again, it is not just to complete the syllabus from chapter 1 to the last chapter and be done with an examination at the end of the year. In academic greenery, we're looking at the nature of the different disciplines. How is it that a certain subject is called mathematics? What is there? What is mathematical about mathematics? What is the nature of physics? What makes physics physics and not biology? What makes history history and not geography? What is there deep inside in these disciplines that makes them what they are? How is it that some wise people in the past decided to package knowledge in a certain way and call it physics? How did they decide to package knowledge in a certain way and call it geography or history or biology or IT or music? So here we are looking at academic disciplines from deep within, from the point of view of their nature, what makes them what they are. Otherwise, we have been teaching physics for 1,000 years. We have been teaching philosophy and mathematics and social studies, humanities for so many years, never asking what makes mathematics mathematics, what makes physics physics. Why is literature different from language? History from geography. So we need to probe these disciplines from deep within. Then they become more powerful. Then they make sense. Then there is purpose and integrity in learning. This kind of learning becomes much more fulfilling and purposeful. Otherwise, we will simply be moving at a very mechanical and routine manner. So academics, in the way that we understand the nature of the different disciplines, has a very important claim on my green school. Next, we have aesthetics. Aesthetics. Aesthetics, as we all know, has got to do with the study of beauty and grace and perfection. Today, aesthetics are studied in many institutions, but because of budgetary constraints and financial issues, aesthetics, humanities, the more humanizing disciplines get often a very, very small um, support or budgetary allocation. Music, for example, music departments, arts departments, and in many universities are said to be suffering in in uh, in comparison to other much more employment generating lucrative disciplines. But art, you can imagine life without art. Imagine life without music. Imagine life with all the beauty of the world, the sights and the sounds, the smells, the music of the ocean, the colors of planet Earth, the magic of the skies, the sunset, a beautiful garden, a beautiful dress, a beautiful piece of music, a good dress, a walk in the garden, the way the table is laid out, the house is built, that sense of beauty, the sense of gives, as John Keats says, a thing of beauty is joy forever. And today, more than ever before, children need to be able to find spaces in the school curriculum to appreciate what is truly, genuinely beautiful, authentic beauty, not beauty that comes from a machine that somebody has produced, mechanical beauty, but beauty and grace that they themselves can generate. Are they able to appreciate a piece of music? Are they able to appreciate a piece of a poem, a poetry, a piece of literature, a painting, a beautiful garden, a beautiful layout of the house, of the rooms? Because today there are so many stimuli, so many external stimuli that impact tender minds, stimuli that come from machines, from technology, from the internet, from the mobile phone. A lot of the information that comes from technology is important. They have a lot of positive benefits, but a lot of the stimuli that come from technology could also have a lot of negative consequences, especially on young minds. If children spend a lot of time with the product of external external creation and leave out their own ability to create, to imagine, to generate, to be makers, there is something wrong. A time could come when too much of addiction with technology can result in the soul being sucked by machines. The soul sucking influence of technology can be devastating on young minds. That is why it's important for school experiences to support the creativity, the personal creativity, imagination, and the ability to make things. And that I call aesthetic greenery. The next, uh, the next claim is the claim of a spirituality.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
spirituality has got nothing to do with religion or religiosity. Spirituality is an acknowledgement of the fact that as we are not perfect. As we are not full. As we are not complete. But in relation to something that is more perfect than us, in relation to something that is fuller than us, more sublime than us, to that extent, we also achieve a fuller sense of who we are, a fuller sense of perfection. And children need role models. Children need ideals. They need icons. And these icons could be either God, they could be their parents, they could be their teachers, they could be public figures, they could be ideas, they could be objects of nature, but anything and everything that elevates them, that makes them that makes them feel a fuller sense or achieve a higher sense of who they are. Because young people can be very arrogant. They could have a sense of their being everything, and that they might discount that there are other elements and objects and beings which are superior to them, better than them, sublimer, more complete, and more perfect. Just as the flower kept by the windowsill looks to the sun to find fuller realization, so also young people need stimuli to achieve a fuller sense of who they are. So spiritual greenery has a very important claim. It doesn't have to do anything with religion. And religion often is a taboo in many institutions on many campuses, maybe for the right reasons. But spirituality is deeper. is profounder than religion or religiosity. We are all spiritual beings, whether we like it or not, and children are spiritual beings. So that's why spiritual greenery has a very important element. It makes us feel, it makes people feel more humble, more sensitive, more outgoing, more appreciative. As we are not perfect. But in relationship with something bigger and more perfect and fuller, we gain a better sense of perfection. We gain a better sense of self-actualization. This is important for children to learn in school. So finally, the claim of ethics or the claim of morality. Today, morality again is a taboo subject in many areas, many institutions, many contexts. Whose morality are we talking about? Whose ethics are we talking about? These are often the questions that we hear. But there is something fundamental on which we all agree. See, as human of the species, we have got accustomed to believing that there is something called right as opposed to something called wrong. There is something called truth as opposed to something called untruth or falsehood. There's something called good as opposed to something called bad or evil. Only the human of the species can make distinctions between categories of values such as this. We can make the distinction. And the ability to make this distinction makes us who we are as the human of the species, rational beings, Homo sapiens. Today, more than ever before, the world needs leaders. The world needs people who can make a distinction. We need young people who graduate from our schools and colleges and universities with this ability to make a distinction between right and wrong, between good and bad, between truth and falsehood. Otherwise, anything goes. Nothing matters. Fair is foul, and foul is fair. This kind of morality will lead to the collapse of the human civilization. There'll be nothing to distinguish us as the human of the species, the smartest, the most highly evolved of all the species. Today we see big corporations collapse overnight. Huge organizations fail and falter because there is something wrong at the top. Leaders don't distinguish between right and wrong, good and bad. Political institutions collapse. Great ideals splinter. Societies fall apart because there's nothing to look up to, see. Young people who are going to be our leaders, all our future leaders are in our schools and colleges and institutions of learning. And it is important for them to be able to form that strength of character, that integrity. They should be able to say, this is right, I'm for it. This is wrong, I'm not for it. I will not buy into everything, see. I'll only go so far and no further, see. Such leaders who have the strength of character will be able to lead the society, will be able to lead nations, and build faith and trust, which are so very important. So if education means anything, it has to mean all these things. Otherwise, we build institutions across the world. We have to ask ourselves, why do we build schools, colleges, and universities? Why is it that we collect all the young men and women, the most precious segment of the society, and put them there for extended periods of time, for long, long years there? If it is only to achieve a degree or complete the curriculum, they don't have to come to schools. They don't have to attend universities. They can find a job anyways. We build schools and institutions and set up educational systems recruit the most highly qualified people from the society, our teachers, and collect the most precious segment of the society, our children, in schools. It means that teaching and learning, our education system, ought to be powerful, it must be purposeful, it must be fulfilling, it must be meaningful. That's why in my green school, there are these elements. It is important to learn technology. It's important to be smart. It's important to be clever. But it's even more important to be sensitive. It's even more important to be good. It's even more important to be humane. Today, COVID-19 has taught us that at the end of the day, it is not materials that are important. It is the humans. It is people, fellow feeling, fellowship, solidarity, the ability to listen, the ability to see, the ability to care for each other, the ability to care for Mother Nature. These are important. As Joseph Conrad, the famous Polish writer, said, something human is dearer to me than all the wealth of the world. Today it is important. Education ought to mean humanization, sensitization. It ought to mean making people noble. Otherwise, year after year, decade after decade, century after century, we'll be teaching all these subjects, making people smarter, all right, but not more humane, not more listening, not more seeing, not more hearing, not more feeling. Education will have failed. Education was called the noble sector long ago. Somewhere along the line, the rains started beating us. We had to rediscover the core essential function of education. And a small effort that we have launched in Bhutan with the help of my fellow teachers, my fellow educators, with the blessings of our great kings, is building green schools. We are not there yet. This is an effort. We have no illusions about the challenges. Just as cultivating building gross national happiness is more important than building gross domestic product, so also cultivating green schools is far more challenging than the easier path of reforming the education system by injecting more technology, by building more resources. That is the easier part. But if we're addressing the whole person, the human being, the child, we owe it to the children. We owe it to the children to do our very best, to give them an experience that is fuller and that is much more honorable. This is my green school.
Wow, what can I say? The only thing I can say is that I see on the chat that we have comments from so many people that they want green schools in Mexico, they want green schools in Nicaragua, they want green schools in so many other countries. It's so inspiring. It's refreshing in many ways. So I think that we are gonna need you traveling the world for a few months. We have to wait a bit so COVID slows down, and thanks to technology. In this case, your voice is being heard in many places. But when I see nature and morality, basically starting and ending with circles, and spirituality and aesthetics, and the way we build our relationships, our culture, the intellectual and academic part are part of it, of course, but you see 6 more elements that are so strategic and so important to the system. I feel that I want my kids in that system. I have two kids. I want them in that system. So what can we do? What can we do? You've been a minister in one country. Can you be a minister in many more countries? What do we do in order to get this model to many other places? I think that we are ready. I think that many countries, many schools are ready for this model. What is your recommendation? And maybe we can end with this. What is your recommendation if somebody wants to start basically following the North Star that you put on the table, the gross national happiness, educating for being? Where do we start?
What I feel is that it'll be wrong to throw the baby with the bathwater. I'm very grateful to the great educators of the world in different continents, different countries, different regions of the world. We have benefited tremendously from the contributions of educators and education system. I am myself a beneficiary of the knowledge and the wisdom and the guidance, the light that I have received from my educators, from my students, and from my colleagues. So I am that beneficiary of great minds. I also see that there are already a lot of beautiful green schools in all parts of the world. I visited several countries, and wherever I go, I see that there are some beautiful models of green schools already. They may not be called green schools, but they're doing a wonderful job. They may not have all the 8 elements that I described, but they have many other elements which also go to make the school more holistic experience than others. In my own country, not every school is a green school. Some of my colleagues have done a wonderful job. There are great examples of green schools. Some are in the middle, some are struggling, and we have a variety of success stories in our own country. But we feel that we must have a goal, just as a nation ought to have its own North Star. In the same way, education is a very long term process. So we should pick up all those good examples in our own societies. Which school is doing better than others? What is it that they're doing which makes the school succeed compared to others which are not doing all that well? So what I feel is that now that we live in a global village, and it's so good that even though 7 seas separate us, you're in Miami, I'm in Thimphu, Bhutan, see, and somebody is in Nicaragua, somebody is in Mexico. People are all over the world, but we can meet together like this in this platform. So what is important, I believe, is that despite the specificities in a particular context, overall, what do we need? Even though we dress ourselves up differently, maybe our food habits are different. At the end of the day, we are all the same. As the great Carl Sandburg, the American poet, said, there's only one man in the world. His name is all men. There's only one woman in the world. Her name is all women. There's only one child in the world, and the child's name is all children. We are all in it together. If any part of the world is educating one child differently, educating one child better, that is a blessing to humanity. That's a blessing to the world. So for me as an educator, for me as a teacher, schools are a blessing. Our teachers are a blessing. Our children are a blessing. The world is far from perfect, but this is the only world we have. And with all the imperfections that it has, it is still a good world. There are far more good people in the world than there are bad people. Life is not perfect. There are pains and headaches and heartaches. But with or with all the agonies and anxiety, life is still precious. Life is still beautiful. And I feel it's important for our children to listen to stories of success.
Yes.
A lot of the time we talk about how difficult the world is, how challenging the world is. I think children deserve to hear stories of hope, hear stories of success, hear beautiful stories. And there are a lot of beautiful stories in every society, in every country, in all parts of the world. I think we should focus on what is succeeding and share examples of good practice wherever they are in the world. I think this is the way to go. See, in Bhutan, we are still struggling, but we feel that we must have a North Star. We must know where we are going. See, and at least we will consciously making efforts to move in that direction. We have no illusions about the challenges. We do have challenges. We have problems. This is a this is a country that is still trying to meet some of the basic needs in the remote parts of the country. So
Yeah.
we do have our own share of challenges, but we feel that nations need to look beyond the present. Otherwise, what incentive is there to do the planning, to mobilize resources? What will the people look up to see, or look forward to see? That's why I feel that all over the world, there are great people, there are wonderful educators all around the world, in every society. I think we should look for those. We should look for examples of good practice in all societies and learn from others who are doing better. So, especially in these COVID times, I see that there's a lot of anxiety, and 95% of the children in the world are doing some kind of online learning, which is good. And I feel this has been a wonderful alternative in many ways. It is not it is not the normal practice, but I feel it's important to think in alternative ways. At the end of the day, if you look at my green school, we do not always have to go to a school to learn all these, but because we've got accustomed to running schools, when our children are in schools and colleges and universities, we have to consciously make efforts to provide a fuller set of experiences to our learners. So my own hope is that our children, our teachers, our educators have to continue looking beyond and looking for the brighter spots. Education is built on the principle of hope. Education is built on the principle of possibility. Today, things may not be bright or beautiful, but with effort, we can make things bright and beautiful. The alternatives are too, too costly. There's no alternative. We have to do what we ought to make a difference. And if education cannot make a difference, nothing can. So it is my wish that all my fellow educators, wherever they are in the world, whatever may be the time zone, do keep doing the good work that you're doing. Be hopeful and don't give up on life. Children need to see light and hope and beauty, and there is plenty of it there. Once again, from Bhutan to all of you, I would like to say what a great delight it's been for me to join you in this conversation. I wish you the very best as look ahead, and also request you and pray for you to look after yourselves well and stay safe. All the very best.
All the very best. This message resonates so much. It's beautiful. Thakur Singh Podel, Minister of Happiness, Minister of Education. I vote for you to really be the world Minister of Education in the coming years. I really want to see this message out. I really want to see more green schools, and thank you for your support to all teachers around the world. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for your vision. Many of the comments that we are seeing is about this long-term vision that you have and that we need to have in order to be more humans, and in order to be at peace, at ease, and to grow children that can really make a positive impact. So you walk the talk. You are an example for everybody. Thank you so much. It's been fantastic learning from you, and hopefully we can learn more in the coming weeks and months, so we can get this message to many, many places around the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you.
And thank you everybody for joining. The recording will be available at the World Happiness Academy, and of course YouTube, Facebook, and everywhere, and any other channel. So thank you so much, and have a safe rest of the day. All the best to your family and your community and your people. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye.
you entirely.